the Quinn Marr Show.
My next guest is a Degrassi legend, known for playing one of the most unforgettable characters on the show, Rick Murray. He had all the shouting at the screen back in the day. But don't worry, in real life, he's a lot less intense and far less likely to get anyone's blood boiling. Outside of Degrassi, he's had a solid career in TV and film with roles in Murdoch Mysteries, Falcon Beach, and more. It's my pleasure to welcome to the Quinn Marr Show, Ephraim Ellis. Ephraim, how's it going?
Hey, doing great, Quinn. Nice to meet you.
Thank you too, brother.
Awesome to be here.
So normally how I do these is I'll go right back to the beginning, just kind of like the beginning of everyone's life, basically. And for you, it's interesting because I don't get a lot of people. I literally live 45 minutes outside of Toronto, so I don't get a lot of people actually that are from the same-ish area as me. So, it's really cool to be able to do this now. So you growing up in Toronto in like the late 80s, early 90s, take me back to like what a young Ephraim was like. Was he into books? Was he into sports? Was it performing at a way? Like, take me back into that mindset.
Oh man, I was 100% not into sports. I was so like one of the things that I kind of like had in common with Rick when I first got the part, because he's such an evil, a horrible character. I kind of tried to find like, okay, what do I have in common with him so I can kind of like have a better into the character. So something that him and me had, like, we were both like nerdy arts kids.
Okay.
So my entire growing up was like, I went to an arts middle school. I went to an arts high school. So in middle school, we like half of our classes were in like drama, dance, music, and art. Like it was like going to Fame. Remember that TV show from the 80s?
Yes.
I went to Earl Haig Secondary School. From like 1999 to 2002, and that was also, again, like I was a drama major there. That's what got me into that. I kind of like decided what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to get into film and television and storytelling for a living when I was like 9 years old. Because my family has a cottage up in Haliburton, Ontario, about like 3 hours north of the city.
Yep.
And there's arts summer camps at the high school there. And there was a art summer camp class that was like make your own movie with like plasticine, like stop motion.
Claymation.
Yeah, like for kids. But I was too young to take the class, so I was watching all these like slightly older kids making all these little movies, and I literally said to myself, "Wait, you can make movies? That's a thing that I could do. That's great!" And I just immediately latched on to that's what I wanted to do with my life.
What did your parents do career-wise? Because did they have anything to do with arts and like anything entertainment?
So both my mom and dad do work in the arts. My mother is a jeweler, so she's owned her own business since 1980.
Wow.
So since 5 years before I was born. So she's a fine. She's a goldsmith, a silversmith, and makes jewelry. She made my wedding band.
Wow.
Again, I cannot wear anything but her jewelry or I get like psychic hives.
You never hear the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So she's been a small business owner and an artist for my entire life. My dad, in like the late 60s, early 70s, was a carpenter. And then he got into working in the theater. He was a stage manager for a number of years. He actually worked at the Second City for I think 10, 15 years, from like 1977 to 1985.
Wow.
And so it was like during the time period where all the famous people were working there before they were famous. So like he was friends with Martin Short and John Candy and all those guys.
What?
Like when he was because he was still doing carpentry, he made a bed for Catherine O'Hara, who was just his coworker at the time.
That's so weird.
Yeah. But then he got out of the theater because it's hard to make a decent living. And he had two kids. So he went into a non-arts related career. And then later in his life, through my mother, discovered silversmithing, which is not jewelry making, but it's making like coffee pots and and art and stuff like that. So him and my mom are both like visual metal artists now.
What?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
And because of that, like my mom and dad were always very, very encouraging about going into the arts as a career because they both really valued that. Yeah.
It's funny that because you're talking about going to an arts like elementary school and high school, and like me not growing up in the city, I didn't really realize how many schools like that there really were. Like my fiance, her brother went to Wexford,
Oh yeah,
which obviously Nina Dobrev, Degrassi connection, she went there too. So
yeah, and there's a good buddy of mine who's on a lot of TV right now, Deshane Williams, went to Wexford.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, I had no idea. I didn't even know about the school until he told me when her and I started dating 10 years ago. But and then he told he it's like his fun fact. He needs people to know he went to school with Nina Dobrev. I'm like, I would be doing the same thing. Yeah. But so it was right away for you. Elementary school was an art school. Like, what's a day-to-day like at an art school when you're 10?
I cannot speak to all of the art schools, but the way that the Claude Watson Middle School worked that I went to was that like literally half your classes were art classes. And it was like, and the way it was staggered just was really random depending on like what teachers were available. So like your Tuesday might be like, you come in, you do homeroom, then you go to dance class, then you go to math class, then you go to art, like visual art class, then you go to English class, then you go like, and it was like, it wasn't like half the day was art, half the day was academic stuff. It was just all like mismatched together.
I think it's better that way.
Yeah, no, it was super fun. I always say like, I don't know how I would have got through regular high school without having like an hour and a half of drama every day.
Yeah, exactly. Did your sister go to this school too, or no?
No, she didn't. She went to the she was in like the academic gifted program.
Oh my God.
In like yeah, like there was a lot of different schools that had gifted programs throughout Toronto. She went to Northern, but yeah.
You guys are an interesting family.
We do our best.
So then getting into like elementary school and high school, obviously doing like being so arts based, when did it become more out of school than just when you would go to your cottage and you would do the stuff there?
Yeah.
Like, was it actually I know you did commercial and stuff. So when did that kind of stuff start?
So Degrassi was my first paid.
That's insane.
It was my first professional gig. Yeah. So I got into being a professional actor. So I knew that I wanted to be a professional actor and writer since I was 9 years old. But my parents were like, slow down, kid. Because weirdly enough, looking around my my arts middle school and high school, a lot of the kids that were pursuing that as a career as like younger people, like it didn't like it's great to make money, but it didn't necessarily always affect their lives in like excellent, like they missed a lot of school. They missed a lot of the chances to like do the art in school, like as kids, like doing school plays because they were off doing TV shows and stuff. So it wasn't that like my parents forbade me from pursuing that, but like they gave me the advice, like maybe wait until you're a bit older. So I chose to do that. And then, so in like late grade 12, when I was 18, just a weird happenstance, like a bunch of coincidences came together that I was able to get myself a film and TV agent. And after 3 months of auditioning, booked a recurring role on Degrassi, which was like incredibly awesome, lucky job to get like right out the gate.
The last few days I've been talking to my fiance's from Scarborough. We have a couple of friends that are from Toronto as well. And I've really realized apparently that a lot of people that are from there didn't watch Degrassi. Did you watch Degrassi before you were on it?
Nope, I didn't, despite going to real high school with two people from the show. Like Jake Epstein and John Breger, both I knew them before I was on Degrassi. They were just buddies of mine from high school.
I wonder what that is. Like where like maybe because like I don't know. I honestly I can't figure it out why that's a thing. Why people from there don't really watch it.
Well, before I was on it, I didn't really watch it. Obviously, I did some research before like going and like being on the show, and I watched a bunch of episodes and things like that. But like it just wasn't, I don't know, when I was like 18, 19, it wasn't like really my like genre of like stuff that I wanted to watch, because again, it was like a teen drama. I was like a huge nerdy kid. I watched lots of Star Trek. Like my favorite show was Stargate SG-1, which was fair. Like, so like the teen drama Degrassi stuff wasn't like the stuff that specifically like I was interested in as like a teenager,
right,
and stuff. So I just never really sought it out. But then obviously once I actually got on the show, I was like, oh man, no, this is an incredible show with like extremely well written drama, like super duper realistic, like all that stuff. So yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, that'd probably be the worst school ever to go to. I would never want to be a student at that school because there's something bad basically happen all the time. So I would never want to go there. Yeah. What was the audition process like for Rick?
The audition process for Rick, weird. You know, it's weird. It's one of the few audition tapes I can still watch because it was like a special feature on like the season 4 DVDs or something like
Cool.
Actually, no, the audition process was interesting because like at that time, obviously everything was still in person. These days, everything is like tape it in your own basement, which is both good and bad. Right. But at that time, most auditions happened in like 3 or 4 different places because there was only a couple different casting agencies. Degrassi auditioned like out of their offices. So I was going to a place I had never been to before, like trying to find it on the subway on the TTC. So that was interesting. And also, like, I wasn't given a lot of information about the character going in. Like, I was given a monologue. But there was no information in the breakdown, like for season 3, saying that, oh, this guy has anger management problems and is going to become an abusive boyfriend, because they hadn't come up with the school shooting stuff yet. So that was kind of his hook at that point. But none of that information was in the monologue. It was just like this kind of like lovey-dovey monologue that presumably would have been done to Terry. Right. But not to toot my own horn, I remember reading the monologue and thinking to myself, like, there's something going on with this guy. There's something sinister. Like, there's something. So I made the choice to be like, I feel like there's something sinister happening beneath this kind of like hopeless romantic dialogue. So I'm going to play that and hope it works. And apparently it did.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, it's like, obviously, I'm assuming the look of Rick was a Degrassi like decision, but like the long hair, was that you or was that them?
So that was me. And I like, and again, that makes it sound like I was making cool, like interesting fashion choices for myself in high school. It was just because I was lazy and didn't get a haircut. Like, this wasn't like, I wasn't like a hippie kid. I wasn't like trying to like say something with my hair. It was just, I just hadn't figured out my, my fashion sense or my look yet, which again, works for the character. And then, and this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, for the second season when he had like, season 4, when he had much, much longer hair. That is no joke, because I was a student and I was trying to save money, and I was like, oh, they said they're having me back in like 5 months. They'll give me a free haircut when I get to set, right? I need to go get a haircut. And then I got to set and they didn't cut my hair because they were like, oh yeah, the crazy like extra length is good. And I was like, oh, okay. Well,
because unfortunately it kind of made a little bit of sense. Hey, we haven't seen Rick in a while, and maybe you just didn't get a haircut. Yeah. And so I watched you on another podcast, I think you did about a year ago. And you were talking. Was
it the one with multiple hosts or the one guy? Yeah. Those guys are Those guys.
So you would
like guys. Those are great. Those guys are great. I love those guys.
Yeah, no, it's like a Degrassi themed podcast. Yeah. You had told them that they gave you, like, when you got the role, they told you everything about season 3.
Yeah.
So at that point, because for those who don't know, again, you get Rick gets a relationship with this girl named Terry, is abusive to her, accidentally pushes her, and she hits her head off a rock, goes into a coma. We never see her again. We don't see Rick after that. So you knew that that's just what was going to happen, and you were probably not going to come back. Yeah, no, I was hired as a recurring guest star. I knew I had 3 episodes, and that was the gig. I had a storyline, beginning, end, and we're done. Yeah. So when I got the call to come back for season 4, I was actually really surprised, because when my agent called saying, like, I've got a booking for you, I thought it was going to be something that I had auditioned for recently in the past couple weeks. And they were like, it's Degrassi. I'm like, wait, what? Again? How? I was like, because at that point, like, the story, it felt like it had been told. Yeah.
So I had no idea where they were going with it. And then, Linda Schuyler called me into her office, explained to me the whole arc for season 4. I'm like, that's brilliant. That sounds awesome. I'm so excited.
When she told you that, there was no doubt that you were going to do it? Like, you were 100% yes, I'm doing it?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It wasn't too dark for you?
No, absolutely not. No, especially especially as like a 19-year-old actor, like that's what you live for, man. Is you want like that kind of like deep, like intense, meaty.
You were the guy.
Like emotions you can dig into. Yeah. Like that's exactly what like every young actor like wants to be handed to them. So yeah.
What I really appreciated about Drake's character, Jimmy, was that he knew right from the start there was something up with Rick.
Yeah.
Right from the start, he knew there was something off. And unfortunately, it was bad for him. But flipping the switch of Rick when he's Mr. Nice Guy to, like, that creepy, like, was that difficult for you?
I don't remember it being difficult, but, like, I don't know, man. It was like 22 years ago.
Yeah.
And, like, as I get older, I look back on kind of like some of the roles I played as a younger person, and I miss just having that unearned confidence of youth. Like I just because I walked onto that set being like, oh no, man, like I'm a movie star, man. This is I got this. I got like it felt so easy. And now that I've been doing this for like 2 decades, I think getting to that level of performance might take a lot more hard work for me now, just because with experience and with age, like you think a lot more.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot easier to get into your own head as opposed to like, again, a fresh faced, like never been on TV before, like again, just jumping in there and just having that fearlessness that you have as like a 19-year-old. I kind of like miss that in my life. But
do you think Ephraim now would have done a better job than Ephraim then?
No. I have learned a lot. I have learned a lot in my 20 years, but I still look back on like especially that final 2 episodes as being like some of the work that I am the proudest I have done. There is nothing I would, especially about Time Stand Still Part 1 and 2. There's nothing I would change about. There's nothing I would change. Yeah.
I know you seem clearly like a humble guy, but do you realize like that is no wrong. That is like one of the most known things about Degrassi is the shooting, and that it's you.
Sorry.
Like when you think about Degrassi, like I mean, it's me and I feel like a lot of people around my age, like they think Rick shooting Jimmy, like that
right.
is one of the most known things of Degrassi.
Yeah. Well, certainly it has been in my life, but that's maybe because people keep recognizing me from it. So it certainly seems that way to me. So I don't know if like, you know, you went up to Stacey Farber or anybody else, they might be like, oh yeah, there's her storyline for that thing. Or like,
fair.
But yeah, certainly, especially because international recording artist Drake has taken off so much, and that was kind of like one of the central storylines for him because that kind of like set his storyline for the entirety of like season 5. And did that go into season 6? I can't remember.
I think he was in 2 more seasons.
Yeah, but that kind of set up his storyline for quite a long time too, and he's like one of the most famous people on the planet.
So crazy.
So yeah.
Well, okay. Actually, well, we might as well talk about Drake now. Was there any inkling of this guy wanting to be an artist at the time?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. No, like the first or second day that I met him, he was like, "Hey, he was like, hey, everybody, like, come to the dressing room, listen to this verse that I'm writing." And we were all like, "Oh yeah, you know, we're all teenagers, we're all in bands, we're all like, oh yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, that's good, but like, we're actors, we're not musicians." And then lo and behold, like 7 years later, blows up.
Wow. Who did you like vibe the most with on set at the time?
Well, again, like I went to actual high school with Jake Epstein and John Breger, so like I often ended up gravitating towards them if they were around, just because like I knew them from outside of work, and so we kind of had a relationship before. I worked a lot with, especially in season 4, I worked a lot with Jake Goldsby, so we got to know each other pretty well, and we also had pretty similar taste in music at the time, so we kind of vibed on that. I mostly worked with him. I got along with everybody. Like everybody was really, really cool. I also was really, really happy because since I started like after I graduated high school, I didn't have to like take breaks in the middle of the day to like go to like
to go to school
room to go to school during the day. Like, see you later, suckers. I'm gonna go.
So where would you go when they're doing that? Would you just go home?
I'd go to my dressing room.
True.
And wait for and wait for my call. Yeah.
That's so funny. It was funny that I was talking about how like Degrassi's honestly would be a terrible school to go to. Is Mr. Radich the worst principal in the world, expelling a kid and bringing him back the next year?
No, I don't think so.
How do you expel someone and bring them back?
But here's the thing, because going into season 4, I don't like. I'm not sure how much textual evidence there is watching the episodes, because I'm pretty sure Rick says something along the lines of like, I've been working on myself or whatever.
Yep.
I kind of built my backstory going into season 4 that he got expelled. This is a wake up call. He knows what he did was wrong. He's been in like anger management like he's been in recovery, like he's been in like group therapy for like a year, and is finally feeling like, oh yeah, maybe I'm in a good place that I can like go back into the general population. And then his parents like fight with the administration for a while to get him reinstated and have to prove X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
And that's kind of like what he's been doing for that year in between, is honestly trying to get better. And then no one forgives him and everything goes tragically.
What I found a little odd was like,
Yeah.
there's not another school in Toronto he could have went to?
There is,
Go back
yeah.
to Ireland?
That probably would have been a better choice on his parents' part. But again, like, you start forming backstory as your prep as an actor. So I'm thinking like maybe he said like, I have to do this. I have to face the people that I wronged and apologize and get their forgiveness. And then he doesn't, and it goes.
I remember like when he said to Emma, I have a right to education. I was watching the other day, like I said,
All right.
yeah, you do. You could have went to another school. But
that is true. I guess other choices could have been made.
Yeah. But then it wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
That's TV shows aren't interesting.
Yeah.
With the school shooting episodes, what was the vibe like on set? Like, did they come and like talk to people and like make sure everyone was like all good? Like, how did that whole dynamic work?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit more kind of like mental health check-ins on the part, like between like the directors and producers and the actors and the writers and the entire production crew during that time. I just remember and I feel like I've said this before, is that the kind of the atmosphere on set was just really reverent, because they knew that the subject matter they were dealing with was so difficult. And that it's kind of like a razor thin line of getting it right and having it be successful and not like gratuitous or sensationalist. And they really like everybody from the executive producers to the writers to directors, the actors, like everybody around wanted to get it right. So when normally there might have been a more casual, like having fun at work kind of attitude on set, for those two episodes, everybody was just like super in the zone and focused and on making sure that what we put out there was the best it could possibly be. Which meant it felt a bit more somber, but like in a good way.
No, that's good. And that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, and obviously you're an actor, so these things happen, but like, did that like mess with you mentally at all? Like going into that darkness of Rick like that?
Like I wouldn't call myself like an old school like method actor. Like when the camera's on, I'm on, and when it's off, I'm not. I don't like maintain character between takes and things like that. Yeah. But specifically, not the entire episode, but specifically like the scenes in the hallway with the gun, I think is like maybe the only time in my life where I was like, no, I can't break character between takes. I'm going to go stand in a corner. I got to like go stand in a corner and like maintain my zen.
Yeah, fair. And everyone leave you alone.
Yeah, and then at the end of that day, I do remember feeling unsettled at like the end of that day, and like I need to take like 5 showers to like kind of like get back into the real world. Yeah. But again, I remember that being kind of special because again, it's not normally like that.
Yeah,
as an actor. So yeah.
Looking back at it, do you think Rick was misunderstood? And like, how do you personally view the character?
I've always kind of thought of him as like a Frankenstein's monster type character, that like he is a monster that does horrible things, but it's because he is misunderstood and society pushed him in one way or another. And I also think one of the great things about Degrassi is that it isn't really cut and dry. Like it isn't like a black and white heroes and villains story. Like Rick is a villain. He does horrible things, but there are reasons that he did those things. And it doesn't excuse the things that he did. But yeah, there's a more complicated backstory and human reasons for why he made the choices that he did. Right. So yeah, and that whole series of episodes, I think was like a really interesting kind of exploration of like a cycle of violence. That, you know, Rick is violent to Terry. Everyone takes their revenge for that on Rick and are violent to him emotionally, kind of physically with the paint and stuff, and the judge throwing him in the dumpster and stuff, which then starts the violence again with Rick. So right. Yeah.
Like I mentioned at the beginning, like this is one of the Degrassi's most talked about like arcs. Did you have any clue it was going to be like this big?
I don't think we had any clue it was going to be this big, but again, we did have that kind of like sense that we know that this episode is important, so we want to get it right on set. I don't think that we imagined it was going to be talked about more than like a year or two afterwards.
Not 22 years later?
Like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we understood that it was that we knew that we had a chance to make something really, really cool. I don't think that we had any inkling that it was going to be as lasting culturally as it has ended up being.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the best line that Rick said in those 2 episodes, that just the most like, I don't even like bone chilling, was this is the only time I actually want to be at school.
Oh boy.
The way you delivered that line, it was just so creepy, and like just it. I guess because I'm rewatching it now, I know what's about to happen, so maybe it made it even creepier. But it's just the way you delivered that line was just so perfect. It just like it gives you goosebumps. It's just creepy.
Thanks, man.
No problem. Like clearly you did your job because
thank you very much.
Yeah. It was one creepy motherfucker. So
and I've again, not to toot my own horn, but I've been in a lot of episodes of TV. I don't remember a lot of line readings, but when you just said that line, I'm like, oh no, I remember how I said that line. I remember that clip. Like again, because I've seen it so many times. Because again, it's been so lasting. It's really cool.
Right. Exactly. So a few years ago, I'm gonna say about 7 years ago, Drake comes out with a new song called "I'm Upset." And the thing about this was
Banger, man.
Yeah, he did it at Degrassi, and he brought back everyone from Degrassi. So can you explain the whole process of how you got asked to be a part of it?
Really, it's not that interesting a story. Literally, my agent called me up and said, like, hey, Drake's people reached out and is getting everybody back to do this music video. And I said, yeah, that sounds like a party. Yeah, absolutely. I'm there. So, yeah. So,
and how was like that whole filming process? Like, it seemed like it literally was just a party, and then they just filmed it.
Most of it anyway. Like most of it was like there was a bunch of like little vignettes, like the me running down the hallway again. That was like shot separately, and there's like a dance sequence that you see for like 2 seconds with like me and Jason Mewes and Dobrev.
Yeah.
That took up some time. But like that whole sequence in the gym, that was basically like a big party in the gym set. The joke of the video is that like he was going to his high school reunion, but for his fake high school, but it legit for me at least, I can't speak for everybody else in the cast, but for me it legit felt like I was going to my high school reunion because I had not seen any of these people who I was on the show with for like 15 years at that point.
Yeah.
So I was just hanging out and catching up with my coworkers from a decade ago.
Was it awkward at all, or did everyone just kind of like blend in together again?
No, it honestly felt like no time had passed. It was really, really cool. It was really, really cool. Yeah.
Did you get to talk to Drake at all, or was it just kind of like he was so busy?
Not really. Ever so briefly. I do remember specifically because last time I had seen him, he wasn't Drake. His name was Aubrey Graham. Yeah. So when he first came, he was like, "Hey, Ephraim, long time." And so shook his hand, and I literally blanked and was like, "Do I call him Aubrey or do I call him Drake?" Yeah. I don't know what to do, and I think I just said, "Yeah, hey, man." I don't think I actually called him a name because I didn't know what was appropriate, and then I walked off and felt like an idiot. But yeah, no, but that was also weird because again, I didn't get to interact with him that much, but it just felt like seeing Aubrey again. It felt like, even though he was, again, one of the biggest celebrities in the world, he just felt like that dude I worked with on a TV show 10 years ago.
And that's the thing for all of you guys, in the cast, is you look at Drake as Aubrey, not I know him from Degrassi as well, clearly the same way, but you guys have this different view of him,
mm-hmm.
which must be a really weird dynamic for you, and you're like, yeah, I was on the show with this guy. He's
he's our buddy from work and is now this giant superstar. So we're all kind of, I don't know, we're all kind of pulling for him because he was our friend from work, and we want him to succeed because we knew him when.
Crazy. So, when Kendrick was doing, I don't know if you've seen any of these memes, when Kendrick did his halftime show last week. Yeah. I saw so many saying that if he brought you Rick out, that it would have been over.
I had so many threads replies of people thinking they were the first person to make that joke.
Yeah.
Last week.
I was like, I'm gonna assume you're Team Drake on this whole beef situation.
I do not take sides. I do not have a team.
Okay.
I don't have a team. I have no comment. I have absolutely no comment.
Fair enough. But I'm glad that you got you saw people saying the same thing about Rick. If Rick got called up from Kendrick to be on there.
Yeah.
Actually, let me ask you this: if he did, would you have been there? That's a tough one. I know.
I think there are a lot. My instinct is to say no, but like there's. I feel like there'd have to be a lot more hypotheticals in that situation.
Right. Because it is the Super Bowl, so that would be nuts.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. So that'd be cool, but also like, what am I saying? I don't really understand. Like again, I don't like the reason I say no comment is because it's not really my world, and I don't really want to like throw like my idiot opinions or like things into the ring when I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's
fair. Like, yeah. So that would have to be a long think.
Right. Going back to the music video quick, when you're running down the hall and you have the long hair and everything, when you put that back on, did it kind of freak you out, like seeing yourself like that again?
No, because it did not look like my.
You don't think so?
It did not look like my hair when it was in real. It was all like really. Well, I guess it did look like
because you were running because it was back.
Because it was all I'm not. I think I've said this before too. I was really skeptical of the wig in that scene too, because again, as I was just saying, we treated those episodes with such reverence, and that like, the material is like such serious subject matter. I was worried that maybe it was making light of it, or like, was this an appropriate thing? Is this gonna how is this gonna play? And it turns out Karina Evans, the director, and Drake and everybody know better than me, because it worked out so it was so good. It was so funny. I cannot believe that I had any doubts going into that situation. But yeah, because when they first started we're going to put you in this costume, I'm like, I don't know. And then, I have no idea how I had any doubts.
I don't blame you though, because I know what you mean. You don't want to, it was so serious and everything, you didn't want to try to turn into a joke. So I do understand your point of view, especially it being literally you like that. You didn't want it to mess with your own resume in a way.
No, and also because going into the video, it was a bit unclear as to whether we were playing our characters or ourselves. And I was under the impression we were playing ourselves. And then I was like, wait, so am I who am I right now in the thing?
You were literally the only one that was two different people, basically.
I think so. Yeah.
Because
just for the rest of the video, I specifically went out and got an anti-Rick haircut before doing the video.
Oh, did you actually?
Yeah.
That's fun to make sure people know I'm not Rick.
Yeah, and I wanted to I was I'm not wearing my glasses in the video. I got a short haircut.
So did they give you those glasses that you were wearing?
Oh, for that one shot? Yeah.
That's so funny. I love that so much. And it's kind of cool when you look at the alumni of Degrassi, especially in that video, Nina Dobrev, obviously, Kevin and Jay are obviously their own thing, but obviously Drake, there were some pretty big names that came out of that show. At the time, I think Vampire Diaries was done, but that was one of the biggest shows ever. So it is really cool when you look back at the people that were on Degrassi.
Yeah, no, the Next Gen and all the other iterations were a really great launching pad for a lot of great young Canadian acting and writing talent. Yeah.
Last couple things I got on Degrassi. The Curse of Degrassi. So this is 4 or 5 years after you're on. So they called you and said, "Hey, can you be on this horror spoof episode?"
I'm still so sad about scheduling for the Curse of Degrassi.
Were you supposed to be physically there?
That's not me. I was not physically there.
Oh, when it showed the shadow?
The shadow, yeah. And also, I don't want to say things that aren't true, but I'm pretty sure that Rick was supposed to be more of a physical presence in the episode. He was not supposed to just be a shadow. But I was already booked. I was shooting a sitcom called Family Biz in Ottawa that summer, and I was booked May to September, and I was out of town and I couldn't come back. So the only thing they were able to do was for me on the weekend to go into a recording studio in Ottawa, Ontario, and record all my lines and put me in. And to this day, I am still bummed that they couldn't push the production by 3 or 4 months and shoot it in the fall or something when I was back.
Yeah.
Especially because, again, as an actor, like there are long swaths of time where you don't have work.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have all this time in October.
I'm assuming that's when it dropped though too, because it was a Halloween themed thing. So I'm gonna assume that's when it came out.
Yeah, so they would have had to shoot it like far in advance.
Yeah,
so,
that sucks. But you had no like issues, like you were like 100%. I want to do this.
Oh yeah, no, I thought it. Again, in the back of my mind, I was a little bit like, oh, but again, that episode was so serious, and now they're kind of doing the sequel episode that's kind of got like a weird kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of vibe to it. Like, is that really in tone with the way the character went out? But like, he does have that really nice like kind of like asking for forgiveness bit at the end with Holly and Spinner and stuff, and so that I feel like that was kind of a nice kind of cap on the arc. And also, like, is it canon? Who knows? Right.
I mean, they're kind of known when you think about it for like those mini episodes to bring back people that literally died. Like JT was in one as well. Like, he was actually in it too. He was in the Christmas one. Yeah. So I kind of forgot going back to rewatch them recently about those mini episodes because like there are some big ones again, like the one you were in, the one that JT was in. Like there's some pretty cool ones. So they knew what they're doing with those.
Yeah.
So, it sucks. Did you hear about the revival they tried to do a couple years ago? I think it was going to be HBO.
No, you know what? I saw like a title graphic and like a clickbait, like Forbes.com, like they're rebooting Degrassi at HBO. And I was like, this sounds like maybe it's like bullshit. And then I didn't hear anything.
Oh yeah. No, I think they tried and it just didn't. It didn't work. They even after Next Gen, like it went on for a while.
It sure did.
New class, whatever. But how often nowadays do you still get like if you walk in, like if you are at a store, does someone notice?
Once or twice a month.
Really?
Twice a month. Yeah.
And also, I know you mentioned
it's not weekly, but it's not weekly.
Was it weekly? Like, was it like a lot more frequent before? I'm assuming.
You know what's weird? It hasn't really. It's kind of been the same kind of ratio of like how often I get recognized for the entire 20 years. But specifically, like I remember in 2007, I was on vacation in New York for like a weekend, and just walking around Midtown Manhattan in 2007, every other person.
Really?
Every other person was like, "Yo, Rick from Degrassi." What? It was very weird, and it was a weird moment of realizing just how big it was, like on the Noggin Network in the States.
Yeah, that's crazy because like that shows you how big a show from Toronto can get.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a real weird eye opener. Yeah.
Interesting. Actually, sorry, this is the last thing you mentioned again. And I go back to this podcast you're on about residuals. So every fall or something you say you get a check in the mail for the Degrassi?
Again, it depends on how the union, like what schedule they're on for the kids. But yeah, usually it's like once a year, and usually it's in the fall. I get a couple bucks.
That's not bad.
Yeah, no, it's not bad.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I want to talk life after Degrassi.
Yeah.
So technically, because I always go through everyone's IMDb. So technically, Degrassi's first in the real world ranking. IMDb, it's not. So after Degrassi was everything else.
Yeah.
So what was the next thing in like the actual order of what you did physically? Because I know IMDb is going to be a little off.
So the summer of 2004 was a big summer for me because like we shot Time Stand Still 1 and 2 and all that. Like we all shot all of the Degrassi Rick stuff earlier in the summer. And then like in August and September of that year, I was out in Winnipeg doing a pilot for a teen drama called Falcon Beach that was on for 3 years. That is like, I miss that show so much.
Can you explain this to me? Because it's sorry to cut you off, but it's a TV movie you were in and a show. So like, how did that work?
So it was called, so it's what we call a backdoor pilot. So it's you shoot a high budget, extra long first episode of a TV show that has a self-contained story that you can air as a TV movie. And then if enough people watch the TV movie, you come back and you start shooting more episodes. Oh. So it was always intended to be a TV show. It was the pilot episode, but it was shot as if it was a movie. Yeah. So we shot the pilot in the summer of 2004. And then I was in 26 more episodes the following couple of years, seasons 1 and 2. And it was kind of like Global TV's version of the OC.
I was just gonna say that. I was just
like the Canadian, like they were like it was like a Canadian series, but we were trying to capture that like the OC kind of vibe. And it was set like in a small cottage town in Manitoba. And I got to play a completely opposite character to Rick because he was like the nicest guy in the world. He was like, I guess, sorry, this isn't the OC, but like the character, Danny, the character I played was kind of like the Pacey from Dawson's Creek character. So like, yeah, so I wasn't Dawson, I was the other guy.
Right.
On that show. Yeah.
That must have been a breath of fresh air, right?
Oh my God, it was so much fun. It was great.
Yeah. And yeah, it was just like you were in the 26 episodes, but you weren't just like, you were one of the main guys.
Yeah, no, I was in the opening credits of the series.
That's really cool. And you said that was how many seasons? 3?
That was 2 seasons. Yeah, so like 2.5 if you count the pilot as being a separate season.
Wow. So that was the next thing after Degrassi, huh?
Yeah, that was right after Degrassi.
You were flying high, man.
It was, yeah, man. That was the early 2000s were a real great time period.
Wow. So then after Falcon Beach, then what was next? Or were you doing anything in between at the same time?
I did a couple. I did a couple random bits. I did
episode
spots on some guest spots on some like cop shows in Toronto. Did a couple like an episode of like Sue Thomas FBI and Wild Cards and all that stuff. For the next couple of years, I had 3. Oh God, I miss it so much. I had 3 different series lead roles. So I was a series lead on Falcon Beach, where I played Pacey, the Pacey character.
Yeah.
And then I did 2 shows on YTV. You're Canadian, so you remember YTV.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I had 2 series on YTV that I was in the main opening credits of. There was a sci-fi show called Zix.
Yep.
Which is again also one of my favorite things I've ever done because I'm a sci-fi nerd, and so I got to like turn into a robot for half the episode. It was great.
That's cool.
So that was like an action sci-fi kids show.
Yeah.
That was half animated because the characters went into this like alternate universe to fight the bad guys where we were all like reboot animated.
Yeah.
Which was cool. So I shot that in Vancouver over a couple of years. And then the scheduling conflicts with Curse of Degrassi because there was one summer where I shot like 30 episodes of this sitcom called Family Biz, which again, not to always make comparisons to other series, but it was kind of like YTV's version of Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh, okay.
Where I kind of played the Malcolm character.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And again, playing like a 16-year-old at 23, which was fun.
Well, honestly, and I'm not even saying this just try to compliment you, but like you look young for your age. So like I don't doubt that you
very much
then, let alone now.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm always worried that like it's like I'm gonna hit like 45 and suddenly I'm gonna age 10 years. like the Matthew Broderick, Elijah Wood disease. Like suddenly you're just gonna suddenly look your age. But
you could be like Ralph Macchio, who does not look 65.
There you go.
Or 63.
65?
63.
Holy moly.
Isn't that insane?
Jeez.
He looks like he's not a day over. He looks like early 40s at the oldest.
Yeah, I would have said, but again, that math doesn't math.
No.
The Karate Kid, but.
Yeah. It's insane. You're also in an episode of Naturally Sadie, which I used to.
I was in an episode of Naturally Sadie, yeah.
And you got to, I'm blanking on her name.
I hope I'm not messing this up. I think I was in multiple episodes of Naturally Sadie.
Were you?
Yeah, but I wasn't like a major character because there was Sadie, and then there was her brother. So I played like her brother's idiot friend on that show. Yeah. So I was always just like in the background, like with him,
right?
Like being like, "Yo, bro," like doing anything. Like,
wait, and then there's a Degrassi connection because I'm blanking on her name, but the actress that played Sadie, Sinclair.
But we didn't cross over because she wasn't on until like a couple seasons later. But
you crossed over in Curse of Degrassi.
We did. That's correct.
I had actor Danny Maggs on back in September a couple times now. The guy he played Edwin on Life with Derek.
Yeah.
And one thing him and I really noticed is how many times Canadian actors cross paths. Like, if you look at a lot of stuff, like even you did, you could see like Degrassi connections everywhere. You really notice that too? Maybe not Degrassi specifically, but just in general, like how often like Canadian actors cross paths.
Well, again, like it's a small town, it's a small country, so you always end up running into each other. This isn't exactly the same, but I remember actually it was I was like, I got an Instagram message from Jake Goldsby like a couple of years ago because he booked a theater gig at a theater I had worked with, and he had never worked there before. So he was just messaging me, be like, "Hey man, I've never worked at this theater before. What's the situation?" And like, we hadn't chatted in a couple of years. And yeah, I've got to tell him like, "Oh yeah, no, it's a great company to work for. You go to yeah." So yeah, even in that these days, like, there's only so many places to work in Ontario.
No,
so
fair. You mentioned actually that's what I wanted to go into next was theater. So you are a big theater guy. Where did that part come into play of enjoyment for you? Like, was that always a thing even when you were little too?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I've always loved theater. Film and TV is kind of like my first love.
Yeah.
But like the question of like, what do you like more, film and TV or theater? There is no answer to that question. It's all acting to me. I love both equally. And like, I don't know if it sounds weird. It's just like whoever's paying me, man.
No, that's fair, dude. I don't blame you.
I just want to be working. I am happiest when I am working as an actor and writer. And whether it's live on stage, whether it's film and TV, I love all of it. It's just, there's just different stuff to love about both of them. Because kind of what I love doing about theater is that you get to tell a whole story all in one go, and you kind of get a sense of the audience's reactions to that as it's going, as opposed to film and TV where you're shooting a scene at a time and you're shooting the scenes out of order. So it's a bit harder to kind of have a sense of the big picture when you're doing film and TV. One of the things I really love about theater is that you have that big picture. You are telling the whole story all at the same time. So,
right. Yeah. Being such a lover of theater, so my one of my best friends, he owns a theater company in Nova Scotia, and cool. Like as long as we've been buddies since we're like 5, like he's been like a theater guy. Like he directed, I think it was Little Shop of Horrors when we were in, he directed Little Shop, and in high school, and I was Audrey too. Like he's such a theater guy that he'll consume anything theater that like he can. Are you in the same kind of boat? Like you'll go to all these shows as much as you can and just consume it?
You know what's nuts? I really need to go see more shows.
Really?
I am such a homebody. Like if I've got a night off, I'm like locked in my living room with my Criterion collection. Like I am a big like Blu-ray like watching movies guys. My wife is huge into going and seeing shows. So she's a stage manager, so she works in the theater, and like if she has a day off and there's a show she could go see and she doesn't go see it, like she starts feeling like, oh no, I need to go. Oh, I can't believe I missed seeing that show. So she ends up actually dragging me to a lot more like live theater than I otherwise would go see, which is kind of interesting because a lot of the work I'm doing these days is in the theater, both the acting and writing. So
yeah. So are you way more theater based right now versus film and television?
Currently, yeah. Most of the stuff, and again, because I love doing both and I am actively pursuing both, that isn't like necessarily a career choice. That just seems to be like kind of the stuff that I'm booking these days is more theater stuff.
Yeah, fair. Because you're a playwright, correct?
I am. Yeah.
Right. So you every part basically of theater you're involved in at a certain point, or you have been.
Sort of, kind of like I have no interest in directing.
Why?
Cause like what I care, like, cause I love acting, I love writing, but like the writing is the part of the storytelling that I want to do. Like there's so much more that goes into directing than just like telling where the actors to stand. But I feel like if I was in the place of the director, that's all I'd be doing. Like I wouldn't know what else I was contributing.
I see. I'm surprised because like I feel like you would think they're like to do more, seeing as like you witness it all the time and like you see the director's work.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't see the behind the scenes of like them late at night at home trying to
like kind of wrestling with how to like shape the scenes and things like
that. Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, no, but I've again, ever since again when I was 9 and I saw that like little kid filmmaking class, I wanted to write stories and I've wanted to act in stories.
Right, fair.
So yeah.
The ones you write, are you acting in them as well?
So one of the best pieces not yet. I have not yet. Is the
Okay.
short answer.
Okay.
The longer answer is that one of the first pieces of advice I got from like a TV writer friend of mine like 10 years ago was like, so where's the part for you in this? And I said, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm writing it to write it, not to like get myself acting work. And he's like, why don't you do both? So in everything that I've written, like with intent of getting it produced since then, I have tried to write at least a small part in it for myself that I could conceivably play. In the couple productions of my plays that have gone up so far, I have not had a chance to play either of those parts. And that's like a good decision on the part of the theater companies, because like if it's the first production of a show, I've got enough on my plate as the playwright, like doing rewrites and like making sure that the script is in the best shape, that like it's kind of better to stick to one lane. But if like if any of my shows get picked up for like a second production by a different theater company, I'm 100% being like, and hey guys, package deal.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
no, that's fair.
I think I'd make a good this guy or this guy. So
yeah. This may be a dumb question, but when I was in high school, I was not only in the Little Shop of Horrors, I was in West Side Story as well, both high school productions.
Yeah.
And like the time from like when we got casted to like when we actually put on the show, months and months and months and months, because obviously we can't do something all day every day. It was class after school and everything. How long is that normally, like for like when you're writing, the actual process? From the writing to then the actual and then the show going on.
Okay, so I think that's kind of two different questions. So the first question is, if as an actor, it's like 2.5, 3 weeks of rehearsal. That's it.
Wow.
Full time, like 8 or 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks in a rehearsal hall, half a week in tech, like on the actual stage, and then the show's open.
Yeah.
When it comes to the writing process, it is the development process for theater, I've found it's the same. It's similar for film and TV. It's so long, and I hate that it is so long. Like the fastest that I've had a play go up is I wrote a show called Bigfoot! In the summer of 2022. Yes, summer of 2022, and it was on stage summer 2024. Wow, and that is the fastest turnaround. That is the fastest turnaround. And like for most of that time, like I'm not doing extra work on it. Like I write the first draft in like 2 or 3 months, and then I'd start emailing it out to people, see who's interested. But the theater companies, they choose their seasons like 4 or 5 years in advance.
What?
So like it's lucky that the AD at the Port Stanley Festival Theater really liked my first show and was kind of like debating doing my next show if it came up before it was written, which is why I was able to.
That's insane. That's such a long time.
Yeah, and my first play, and again, but the pandemic kind of got in the way of this. My first show I started writing in like 2017, and it went up in 2023. And again, like the pandemic got in the way there, but it still would have been at least like 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
You mentioned your wife being a stage manager. I'm assuming that's how you guys met?
No, actually, we met through mutual friends.
Okay. Has she worked on your shows?
She has not worked on any of the plays I've written, but we have worked together. Like I've worked with her as an actor twice. Yeah,
right.
Twice. Yeah.
Is that a decision you make on purpose that she hasn't worked on one of your plays yet? Like how's that dynamic work?
No, well, again, I don't hire the stage manager and think that's all up to like the AD and the theater company.
Sure.
I just write the script, and then the theater company does all the rest of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that isn't any active decision making, but like if I know she's working on something that I think that there's a part in it for me, I always like submit my resume or like get my agent to it.
That must be so awkward sometimes then.
But no, not really. But also like one of the 2 times that we've worked together was like one of the best jobs of my life, because I was working with her. We did a kids theater tour that it was just me and her and 2 other actors in like a Mercedes Sprinter van, like one of those big like with the set, and because it was kids theater, we had to like load in the set ourselves.
Oh, wow, okay.
But we were doing this across the U.S. tour over 3 months, and that was like, yeah, that was before we were married. I think that might have been before we moved in together too.
Wow.
So like at the end of that tour, we were like, yeah, we still love each other. I think we should move in together. Like, I think this is like,
together in a van.
If we can make it through that process, I think this is going to work.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. I have a few more things before I let you go. I want to know, just because obviously like your line of work is not a regular 9 to 5. So like, and I know obviously it's different all the time, but like, what is like a day-to-day like for you? Like today on a Monday, like what obviously you mentioned you have something to do in the next hour, but like, what is that day-to-day like for you?
So like today I got up, had some breakfast, worked on a scene and a song for an audition I'm rushing off to after we wrap up here today, for a theater gig. So yeah, I'm wrapping this up because there's like the storm of the century in Toronto. So I'm taking the TTC. I wish I could drive. I hate taking the damn TTC. Yeah, so doing working on the sides, do a podcast, go to the audition, come home, and come home and maybe start working on rewrites for my third show that's going into a workshop in 2 weeks.
Right.
But maybe I'll put that work off till tomorrow because I'm going to be wiped by the time.
It sounds like it. Do you find yourself like are you an organized guy with all this stuff you have going on?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. No, I have like a paper day planner. Like I do not use GCal. Like
really?
I have to write things down that way. But I also have like millions of notes on my phone. And also like if I am doing a day of rewrites or like working on the first draft of a new show, I always end up starting later in the day because like I can't start writing until the house is tidy. Like I always have to think about it. I have to do like a half hour of making sure everything's in its right place and like my feng shui is okay before I sit down at the keyboard.
That's fair. That's like my fiance. She says cleaning calms her. So whenever she needs, I just let her.
Same vibe.
No problem.
Yeah.
Ephraim, the last thing I got for you, I ask every guest this is, what's one thing you miss most about being a kid?
Oh man. Oh man, that's a great
question. I know.
Yeah, that's a great question. So kind of like the bittersweet answer to that question is kind of maybe what I said earlier is I really miss having that kind of confidence and fearlessness that you have as a kid, as an artist. Because like even before I started, like I'm like earlier I was talking about like that having that fearlessness professionally. But like when I was a kid and I would just like run off into the woods with a wooden sword, like just making up stories for the joy of it. It kind of sucked. Like, yeah, it's like, I always strive to get that kind of energy back when I'm writing, like to kind of put that kind of, because obviously it's different when you're telling stories as an adult, maybe for work, maybe for your own joy, but you always kind of have to tap into that part of yourself.
Right.
That just had that pure joy of imagination.
And I feel like now, like as an adult, you got to be more technical about what you're like, and kind of have to justify what you're saying. When you're a kid, you can say this guy's made of spaghetti, and that's it, right? Like you can say whatever you want. No, I love that answer. That's great. Again, like I said, I ask everyone that, and I'm always really.
That's a great question. That's a great closing question.
I appreciate it. Yeah. It's because there's nobody I know that misses being a kid more than I do. Hence why I have this podcast where I interview people I used to watch on TV when I was a kid. Nice. So, yeah, I'm always interested to hear what everyone else has to say. But, yeah, no, Ephraim, man, dude, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Thanks so much for having me on, man. This has been really, really fun.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate it. I'll definitely have to get you on again if you're available. Yeah. I'm going to let you go. Wish you luck on that audition today.
Thanks, man.
I don't want to make you have to rush even more than you already do. But, yeah, again, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure, man.
And that was the Quinn Marr Show.